we're going to now talk about some blood and lymph. Now, you might have already seen blood before in your life, and by that I mean I guarantee that you have at some point or another, at least in a physical standpoint, but also from a biological concept. It's something that you learn from early on, which can make it really deceptive. It's pretty easy to determine what blood is, but there's a lot of specific terminology that actually goes along with blood, and if you break it down, then it makes sense as, once again, with everything else, you look at the roots and the ends. So we've talked about blood before in the last video as to how it has its formed elements, or the cells and cell-like things. A lot of the cells are going to have cyte at the end of it, C-Y-T-E, cyte. So as the suffix, that means cell. So lymphocyte, erythrocyte, monocyte. Other cells are going to have fill, meaning that they like whatever it is, or really actually the way that they've been determined is by the cell stain that was used on top of them. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. You might not know that much about lymph, and from at least an actual anatomy and physiology standpoint, lymph is not really truly circulated. It's pushed from one place to another, and it gets propelled in one direction away from its source through different types of vessels, through drainage rather than actual circulation. And then it goes into veins and can get moved throughout the whole rest of the system. Normally, if you think about the circulatory system as a whole, it contains both blood and lymph. Lymph is going to be fairly similar to plasma, but without as much of the red blood cells. And by that I mean there generally aren't red blood cells that hang out in lymph. So when you're looking at blood and lymph as a whole, blood, as I said earlier, sorry, I have some hiccups. Blood contains formed elements, erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, thrombocytes, and leukocytes. Leukocytes are white blood cells. Thrombocytes help with clotting. And then also plasma. It is considered connective tissue, which is kind of an awkward thing because you don't think of it as an actual tissue because it's a fluid tissue. But either way, it moves things from one place to another: oxygen, nutrients, hormones, salts. And then also allows for defense of your body through leukocytes, or white blood cells, and it moves through different types of blood vessels by the pumping of the heart. The lymphatic system is going to be mostly lymphatic capillaries, lymphatic vessels, and lymphatic ducts, and lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are types of organs that hang out in certain places throughout your body. If you've ever had swollen glands when you're sick, or you feel underneath your throat right here, those are lymph nodes that get swollen up. They tend to transport proteins and fluids that are lost through the process of leaking out of capillaries, so putting them back into the blood. But more often than not, you'll see it as a way of talking about the immune system, because most of the immune system lives in the lymphatic system. So they overlap a fair amount, especially within those lymph nodes. If you want to know more about the immunology of the human body or how the immune system works, I do teach a class in immunology. It's offered generally in the springs, and it is an upper division course, a 4,000 level course. So if you like my videos for some ungodly reason or another, come and hang out with me. It's actually a really fun course, and students tend to enjoy it and learn a fair amount. So if you like this type of stuff, come on and hang out later on. When we're talking about other lymphatic things, there's a couple organs that are specific to the lymph system, or the lymphatic system. So lymph nodes, tonsils, spleen is one of them. The spleen is one of the most cool organs. It doesn't get as much limelight as it really should. It is one of the coolest organs in your whole entire body. It's a stealthy organ that people forget about, but it recycles old red blood cells, acts as a filter of the blood, also stores a whole bunch of red blood cells so that if you lose a lot of blood, then you can actually come in and it can help replenish your body. But it's a pretty cool organ. Tonsils are at the back of your throats. They trap germs that are breathed in and help produce antibodies to kill off types of germs. It's one of those things, that's why they get removed so often, is because if you're harboring a whole bunch of bacteria, then it might just mean that you keep on having all of that bacteria, and it makes it so that you have really good bacteria in your tonsils, and they keep growing, and then you have to constantly have strep throat or something else like that. Not good times, but it's better that you have them generally, unless they don't work for you, in which case you should get them removed. There's also the thymus. So the thymus is a different type of thing than the thyroid. So oftentimes students get them confused. Thyroid, butterfly-shaped organ on your neck, deals with growth and metabolism. So it's here. Thymus, on top of your heart. So if I were to draw a picture of a heart, so ooh, here's a heart. Ooh, look at that. Okay, and then just to make it more accurate, there. Okay, so the thymus is going to live on the top part of the heart. So that's where it is. It kind of looks like a hat that lives on top of the heart, and it atrophies over time. So by the time you're about 25 years old, then you really won't have a thymus anymore. So that is, oh shoot, I'm still inking. I can laser point. Okay, so that is the whole entire purpose of the thymus. It is also where T cells grow. T cell means thymocyte, or that's a different word for it. So thymocyte is the same type of thing as a T cell. T cells help direct the immune system and also help specifically kill off individual infected cells. When you take some blood from somebody, spin it down in a centrifuge, then you can end up getting a variety of different types of things. You have the plasma that's going to be at the top, you have the red blood cells at the bottom, and then you have this middle part, which is all the leukocytes. It's called the buffy coat because it's buff colored, so tan. But it is the buffy coat, and the inside of the buffy coat you have things like eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. Those are those cells that I talked about before, where they are different types of cells that will kill off things, and they were named stupidly because of the stains that they look grainy in. They're called granulocytes because they're grainy cells. Granulo, grainy, cell, site, cell. Eosinophils look grainy when you stain them with a stain called eosin. Basophils look grainy if you stain them with a basic stain, so like a pH basic stain. Neutrophils look grainy when you stain them with a neutral pH stain. Good times. Lymphocytes, there are two different flavors. There are B cells, not named after bone marrow, but that's where they grow up. B cells are actually named after an organ in a chicken, because that makes sense. Humans don't even have that, but it's like where the B cells are actually originate from in chickens. And then there's T cells, or thymocytes, and those grow up in the thymus. All blood formation happens in red bone marrow, generally in the diaphysis or the epiphysis of bones, long bones. Lymphatic system travels through the body. This is vaguely what it looks like. There's a variety of different types of places and lymph node organizations. So there's a couple over in your neck. There's some in your groin. There's some in a variety of other different places throughout your whole entire body. And these are things that you should probably know about. That's the lymphatic system. If you have any other different types of questions about these different types of things, please come and talk to me. I am here to help you. So, but otherwise, that's all I got for blood and lymph. Ciao.